afternoon. My name is Antonina, and today in the studio with us is Rick Dignard and the founder of the SOGI Taskforce International, Andy Dodge. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Pleasure to have you here. Really good, thank you.
Sure, yeah, my name's Andy Dodge. I'm the co-founder of the SOGI International Task Force. We were basically formed after, I'm also co-founder of the Canadian Freedom Coalition, which is a freedom group. We bring in speakers to our meetings, and at one of our meetings we had Ronnie come and speak, who was a teacher for the Vancouver School Board. She had actually stepped down from the school board because she didn't like what she was seeing and witnessing, and what was being expected of her as a teacher went against everything she believed in. So we had her come to do a presentation at one of our meetings, during which time we had a lot of parents and grandparents were really shocked and disturbed. I myself was, as a parent, I was so grateful my kids are no longer in the education system, because I would have pulled them. So Ronnie did her presentation, a couple of days went by, and I gave Ronnie a phone call and I said, we need to do something. We need to bring people together, we need to empower parents, we need to inform parents. So that's how the SOGI International Task Force, which stands for Sexual Orientation, Gender Identity, came about. So it started basically with me and Ronnie reaching out to people that we knew, groups that we knew, and the task force was formed.
Ronnie had done an interview with me. I'm with Children's Health Defence Canada, and we talked a little bit about all of the different things in regards to what's happening to children. Some of the SOGI stuff came up. Andy mentioned to me he's been talking to Ronnie, and for the exact reasons that he said, you know, we need to sort of get people together to get on this. This is not the kids' fight, it's our fight for the kids. And so they asked me if I would join, and I was happy to do so. So the amazing people that are part of the task force, the education I've received is unbelievable, and just shocked to hear that some of the people we work with, they've been at this for decades, and this stuff goes back. This is very dark. It's been going on for a long time, but now it's being rolled out, so to speak, and our kids are just, you know, they're the victims of all of this sort of sick kind of indoctrination.
Well, we have doctors, experts from 7 different countries. So we all started getting together once a week, Zoom meetings, discussing what we could do, touching base with some local people here as well. We built a website, and then what we're doing is we're basically just bringing as much information as we can together to empower parents. Because I think the issue we have, that Rick's discovered, is parents don't know what's going on in schools. So our goal was to inform, educate, empower, but also give the parents the tools where they can go into a school and ask the right questions, and get involved with their kids' curriculum again, right? Because I think that's the biggest thing, is parents have become separated from the children. They don't know what's going on. Mm-hmm. So that's our whole focus. We know there's lots of issues in the schools from what we're seeing. So the idea being, I think our long-term goal would be able to support families with homeschooling. Mm-hmm. We're dealing with people who do homeschooling programs. We want to basically promote them, and also maybe idea of raising funds to support those programs to get these kids out of schools. We're creating webinars and just creating tools and handouts for parents to support them.
Amazing. So you've mentioned 7 countries, so which are they?
So we have experts in the US, we have experts in New Zealand, Australia, here in Canada, Israel. We're talking to people in England and Wales as well at the moment. So that's kind of where we're starting.
So you're saying that the problem echoes across the first world, and you're not seeing it only in Canada,
Yeah.
So the major concern of the organization is that parents are not aware what's being done behind their backs and behind closed doors in school.
Yes.
Schools, okay. In regards to sexualization and education on, matters of sexual orientation
For the kids, yes.
Okay.
It used to be that, parent consent was required before you introduce things at school, and now basically just by dropping your child off at school, you're giving the school consent. That's considered consent. Mm-hmm. It's been going on for a while. I think it's only probably been within the last 6 to 8 months that we've seen an increase and the agenda being pushed further. You're probably seeing an influx of new teachers coming out of university that are being indoctrinated, and now they're pushing this ideology in the school system. It's being introduced in every school board within the Lower Mainland in BC, and I think it's beginning to spread to other provinces now as well.
What we're finding now that things have kind of become more sort of in the open at the schools, is that the children are becoming encouraged not to tell their parents. Right. So if this is just our little secret type of psychology with little kids, there's so much abuse going on mentally that it's so hard to see for parents, because they literally aren't able to witness what their kids are being told. We're starting to see now the kids that have been basically fallen victim to this ideology are actually coming out now saying, I didn't know what I was doing. I was being told to do things I wasn't old enough,
I wasn't old enough to consent.
Consent or have any knowledge, or what does a puberty blocker do? Like, they think it's candy the way they talk to them about it, and it's going to make your life better. And this is stuff that parents need to know. And some are ready at different times. Our job, I think, is just to provide these tools and give them support in a safe environment. And the tactics are, they're becoming really dangerous. You're seeing, we've recorded, clashes, physical clashes, with the LGBTQ supporters, the community. There are people in LGBTQ that don't like this SOGI stuff. We have to be clear about that. We've got huge organizations like Gays Against Groomers that are completely on our side, but all of it, they're censored from the internet and everything. So the tactics are becoming really warlike. But we are winning it. I mean, you can see these people are unhinged. There's been some recent footage. Dan Dix, Press for Truth, Drea Humphreys, they've been great at covering this. And you can see the unhinged behavior from the other side. And this is all being supported by government. You haven't seen one government official stand out against the violence that these people have brought to some of these events. So we're completely the opposite. We don't show up in a group to clash with these people physically. We want to make sure there's educational resources in a safe place where you can actually learn. And I believe when we get there, it'll be a combination of everybody. It's not that they're wrong or we're right or anything like that. Everybody's going to have their style on how to deal with this. Sometimes it does get emotional, physical. We have to just understand that's human nature, but we have to fight for our kids.
I think as parents are afraid of confrontation, and my discussion with a lot of parents when they go into the schools to speak to the principals or teachers, they're basically just pushed out the door.
Yeah.
You can't have the conversation, right? That's an issue. And I think for a lot of parents, they're seeing media cover one side. So when they hear our conversations and what we're trying to share, they don't believe us. We have access to every school library in the US, Canada and England. One of our members is a researcher, and he can tell you what book is in what school and when it was checked out. And it's borderline pornography that these young kids are being exposed to, which is something a lot of parents don't believe it. So part of our webinars is we're going to be showing them how they can actually do that research themselves. So we want to empower them, and I think that once the light goes on with these parents, it's not going off.
Yeah.
And you're seeing in the US, for instance, it's really interesting, the different states, how Florida banned this program in the schools. They banned it. DeSantis actually took a liquor license away from a hotel that had one of these drag shows with the children. Wow. Right? Love him or hate him, Donald Trump has said, when he's re-elected, any school supporting this ideology will lose their funding. So first and foremost, schools are about education, not indoctrination. That's what's going on in schools. When you walk into a school and you see all these flags, and that's actually not to do with education. It actually shouldn't be there. And what a lot of teachers don't realise, they're actually breaking their own rules and regulations. But they don't know they're doing this. That's another issue that we've discovered that we're sharing as well. So
what you're saying, education is not only required for parents to know what's truly going on behind closed doors, but it's the teachers that are not fully well aware of exactly what that means psychologically, long term, and how that's manipulative. Potentially, speaking to young children that are not prepared for this kind of conversation.
Yeah,
and
100%.
What does that create?
We have one of our members she's a support worker in the school. So when she goes in and works with one particular teacher, she tells a story, is that when she goes for her break, that teacher will get a certain book out to show the kids. And when she steps back in the room, the teacher hides it because she knows. That's the sort of things that's going on in our schools.
That should raise everyone's red
Yeah.
flags.
Yeah.
Because if anything's hidden and cannot be exposed to the light of discussion to the
Yeah.
public, we know something's wrong is happening
100%.
and something beyond, like, no matter what their excuses are.
Yeah, and it's quite frightening to see sort of the mass psychosis of what you would call the educated, demographic. The PhD that stands for this kind of stuff and supports it. There's something wrong. There's something not clicking on a humanitarian level, right? Where they don't even think about their own kids or grandkids, and they're going to school and being subject to this stuff too. So something in the psychology, which we've got people like John Euler, who he's studied this stuff for decades. Like, we're brand new.
Yeah.
Like, we're just learning like a lot of people. But somebody like John Euler, who's on our team, he's into the mind, the psychology of, the people that have been caught and are imprisoned. And what I learned from him is that, when he talks to these pedophiles that are locked up, it's about trust. So if you make a drag queen thing fun and friendly, and the kids, it's like a clown, when you're a little kid, it's all about gaining trust. So they'll talk about these books, story times, these drag queen story times, and there's nothing really too crazy about them themselves, but if they gain that trust in the beginning, the next step is where you start worrying down the line, where kids are comfortable with a man dressed like a woman, and it can be more provocative as time goes on. And down in the States especially, you do see where there's full-on strippers with parents bringing their little kids. This is because they've gained trust. They might have gone to 3 story times and it was great, and then now they're hanging out with strippers, and then they're serving alcohol in some of them. It's the dumbing down of society, where do you not see what's happening,
We
right?
put our guard down and we
Yeah.
allow for all this virtue signaling.
We've become too busy as parents,
Yeah.
and we've lost connection with our children. It used to be back in the day, so we are focused on schools, right? That was our primary focus. But it used to be, when my kids did full school trips, you had to sign consent forms.
Mhm.
Anything that goes on in schools that falls outside of the curriculum, it's something that you have to sign for it. You have rooms in schools right now where your son could be dressing up as a girl during the day and your daughter as a boy, and when they come home they're dressed back normal, and you don't know, and they're told not to say anything.
To get some of your like-minded parent friends together. I said, that's the first thing you can do. And it doesn't matter if you just have them over in your living room, 5 or 6 people. And then come to us and we'll show you what kind of tools you can bring. Get that crowd from 5 to 10 to 15. And you're not crazy people just making stuff up. You're actually part of the system where you can actually make some changes. We want to get them before they get there and let the parents know this is why there is no time. You can't undo some of this stuff that's happening. So some parents just need honestly just a kick in the butt and see some of the examples of these poor kids that are scarred for life. They're literally scarred for life.
But you have to look at who's behind this, who's funding this.
Yeah.
Big pharmaceutical companies, because I believe it's become a $4 trillion industry,
Mhm.
and it's growing. We're creating a toolkit, so
Like a PDF format handbook.
yes,
okay.
they can download it. We have different types of information guidelines, asking the right questions, right? Because the biggest issue is when you go into a situation, if you're not prepared, and you're just going in. So we're going to teach them what questions to ask, and if you're given this answer, where you go. So we're empowering them. So that's the big thing that we're trying to do. And the other thing is just awareness with the parents, so they know what's going on in school. First off, you've got to talk to your children.
Mhm.
You've got to start having conversation with your kids again. Then you go from first step, then you talk to the teacher, maybe the principal. And if you're not liking what you're hearing, that's when you start talking to other parents, and you get your numbers growing.
Mhm.
And then if you have a house where you have 20 parents, we'll come and we'll talk, we'll have a conversation with you. Our website, there is a lot of information on there to help them.
And we will not move an inch if you go
Yeah.
after our kids. This is
No.
we've actually turned the other way for so many things, to the point where now you're going after our kids. No, we're done.